Okay, so welcome to today's class. Today's class, as you can see on the screen, is going to be about climate graphs. Okay? Now, what you see on the screen in front of you is a number of critical pieces of information to understand what a climate graph is. I'll start off by saying that a climate graph, and if you can just see this on the board, I hope you can. Yeah, there we go. So up here you've got degrees C, centigrade. So that's the temperature. And it's a scale that goes all the way down the side of the page. Okay, starts at 0 right down the very bottom. Goes 0, 10, 20, 30. Now the temperature is normally on the left-hand side. Okay? The other thing about temperature is that temperature is usually given on the graph, at least, with a red line. And you can see, if I get my little pointer here, you can see that this line here represents the average minimum temperature, okay, for each of the months that go along the bottom of the graph. The other red line on this particular graph shows the average maximum temperature, so that's your temperature through the day, and everywhere in between that's shaded this orange colour represents the range between the minimum and the maximum averages for any particular month. Okay. So if we wanted to identify what the temperature was, let's say, for example, we were looking at identifying the temperature for June. What we would do is we would simply look up, and if we wanted the minimum, we would read off from where that is there, and if we wanted the maximum, we would then read off from the top line. Okay? And we read it off by looking left and lining it up with our scales, okay, or our vertical labels. So you can see that for January, the average maximum temperature sits at around 30 degrees, okay, for that time of month. You'll also notice that we have these blue bars that appear, okay, on our graph. These show rainfall. Okay, so the higher the blue column graph, the higher the rainfall. And on the right-hand side, you can see that we have a scale in millimetres. And our scale starts down at 0, goes up to 100, up to 200, up to 300, and up to 400. Now, straight away, we can see that Darwin does receive some months where they get upwards, that is above 400 millimetres of rainfall. Now that's a lot. That's a huge amount. Okay, so when you see that a climate graph shows that amount of rainfall, it tells you immediately that this is not a desert. Okay?
Darwin is a desert, or parts of it.
Darwin is not a desert.
Parts of Northern Territory.
Well, we're talking about Darwin. Okay, not the Northern Territory. Okay. So what we do, if we want to know the rainfall for any particular month, we follow the same process as we did for temperature. And I'm just going to show you an example of that now. So let's say a question asked you in a test, for example, you know, what was the average rainfall, or what is the average rainfall for the month of December for Darwin? All right, so what you would do is, and I'll use a different colour here, you look for where December is, and there it is right there. Have a look up where the bar finishes and then measure it off the scale. So we've got more than 200 but less than 300. We might estimate here that we've got around about 240 millimetres of rainfall that occurs. 240 millimetres of rainfall that occurs in the month of December for Darwin. And I'm just going to pause here for a moment. Okay, so as you can see here, we have Alice Springs. And Alice Springs shows a different pattern. Now, the thing that I want you to notice here, and this is really important, is that on our scale, once again, we go for rainfall, temperature 0, that's 100, 200, 300, 400. And that's exactly the same scale. The distances between each of the numbers is exactly the same as our previous climate graph. And the reason why that's really good for us is because we can immediately see that Alice Springs doesn't receive rainfall anywhere near 400 mils for any particular month whatsoever. In fact, they don't even receive numbers over 100 per month. Now, immediately, right, if I was to draw a line across this area here, we see that there is not one month where rainfall is over 50 millimetres. Not one month. That tells us that this is a desert. Okay, low rainfall throughout the whole year. The other big difference too that you'll notice is that there's a really big difference between that top line and the bottom line. Okay, it has a large range. Not only that, between summer temperatures and winter temperatures, there's a large variation. Okay, and that's really interesting to notice. Usually this occurs when there's not much humidity in the air, which means not many clouds. Okay? All right, that's really all I need to say. Just note also, please, we always start in January for our months and we end in December for our months.